Leo, perhaps you can lead us through how does one develop a cost-effective MMV plan for a CO2 storage project?
We see the MMV plan obviously as a requirement from the regulators in many of the jurisdictions in which we work, but it's also an opportunity to make a risk-based plan for managing all of the things that could go wrong in the field. So the three risks that a developer will have to contend with here are well integrity, injection operations, or anything related to injection operations, and plume monitoring or pressure plume monitoring. So injection operation has to do with the integrity of all of the wells that are going to be in this complex. And that means the new wells, the injectors and the monitoring wells that will be drilled, and all of the legacy and existing wells. Then we have everything related to the injection operation, and it has to do with all of the parameters that you have set in your modeling that you will execute. The injection rate, the capacity that you're going to fulfill in this reservoir. So you need to monitor all of those things in the wells that you're operating. And finally, you need to know where the plume is going. You want to know that the plume is not going into problematic features either in the subsurface or in the surface. Out of all the different measurements that are available for an MMV plan, we can roughly group them into 4 categories. So surface and shallow depth measurements. Then we have everything related to well integrity. All of the measurements related to operational injection and operational management. And finally, the plume, CO2 plume and pressure plume migration. Everything related to surface monitoring. This has to do with geochemical analysis of groundwater, soil sampling, air sampling. There's a lot of measurements there that need to be collected on a regular frequency to make sure that the CO2 is not migrating all the way up to surface. Then we have all of the measurements related to well integrity, and this has to making sure that the CO2 is not leaking through the wells. And this has to do with the injector wells, the monitoring wells, which are the new wells in the plan, and all of the legacy wells that were there from before. Then we have all of the measurements related to the operational parameters of the site. This has to do with flow rates, temperature, pressures, and not just at surface, but also downhole. And finally, the CO2 plume migration and also the pressure plume. This is probably the hardest one to monitor it because the measurements that we have available are not direct measurements of where the CO2 is. Having all of those measurements put together, this is what makes a comprehensive MMV plan that allows you to really understand how your site is operating, but also making sure that the integrity of the site is sound and that you're not going to run into any issues with the regulators or with the local community, with the different stakeholders that are in this type of projects.